The screen is not much to look at. We're going to do more in-person videos, but basically getting our thoughts together. Our joint mission is going to be to focus primarily on first of all, the most important mission is the boring nonsense that nobody likes, which is hiking safety education. People don't want to jump on YouTube to listen to educational lectures, and that's just a reality. Maybe there's ways to do it more creatively in person, in the field, live demonstration. Make it entertaining, like the safety videos that you see on airplanes. But we are not content creators. We're influencers, so that's a problem. But basically, we're reacting to one thing. Basically, there was a basically an American female that perished recently in South Africa. So our screen's still here. This is Nevada. It's not South Africa, but we basically there are tragedies. We can't really talk about South Africa because we don't know the circumstances. We read in the news that basically the South African authorities would perform their autopsy, and I believe that will roll out a lot of all the YouTube's commentariat with wild speculation, wild theories, when the commentariat knows nothing. And I think that's pretty similar to a lot of missing persons cases. The YouTube's commentariat, they know nothing. Okay, popularity isn't our goal, so when we insult the commentariat, so be it. But basically, it's important to focus on safety education across different parts of the United States, including the Mount Charleston, basically that system in basically near Las Vegas, Spring Mountains, the North Loop, whatever. There's so many ideas that can improve hiker safety, but the first and foremost, to not get lost. If a lot of people don't bother to learn land navigation, that's sad. But basically, that's probably just a reality. It's important to not get lost by making sure you have an offline, basically making sure that you have a GPS offline GPS map navigational system that tracks your every step. Okay, that allows you to backtrack where you started and how to get back to where you started on your mobile phone, and to make sure that you have a high capacity recharger on that and tested cables that will enable you to track where you are. Say if your cell phone runs out of battery, and basically sometimes as the cell phone gets older and older, mine is at around 76% charging capacity of basically so basically it runs down really quickly. So that's why I have high capacity rechargers, very high capacity rechargers, but also a physically separate GPS unit. And it's very vital to mark the coordinates where one started out. For example, it's basically where you started out, where you would backtrack in an emergency to get back to basically civilization. You need to mark coordinates and to test those coordinates. If people have a GPS unit, working GPS unit, if they go to, for example, this is the most practical thing. If they're not very familiar with the GPS units, at the very least, if they don't have advanced waypoints set on those route coordinates on your GPS unit, the one most important thing is simply mark where you started out on the trailhead. For example, you're parked in your vehicle. Before you start hiking, before you move 10 paces, mark the coordinates of your vehicle where you started out. Mark the coordinates of your base camp or vehicle before you walk 10 paces, before you begin any journey. Just At the very least, just mark where you started off at. So and to test, and then test the coordinates of that set by the GPS to make sure that it's pointing to the correct location. Okay. And also to make sure you have a high capacity recharger that will give you these 2 levels of redundancy. Make sure your battery, make sure you test one, this is a survival checklist. Make sure you have an adequate backup battery system. 2, make sure you have the correct cables for your GPS and mobile phone. And 3, make sure you test those cables to make sure they work, because you have your battery and redundant devices, but your cables are mismatched, or the cables are correct but they don't work. That's a problem. And make sure you have an offline GPS hiking application. So again, phone with offline GPS hiking navigational system. Okay, that's your first navigation. That's a main navigational redundancy. 2, physically separate GPS unit, second redundancy. And 3 and 4 to make sure those redundancies can work. Make sure you test the cables and make sure you have validated, correct, and tested cables, and that will work with a recharger for those devices. Battery, high capacity battery. Let's again, 1, high capacity battery. 2, tested and validated cables for multiple redundant devices. Offline GPS navigation system on your mobile phone. And next, physically separate GPS unit. And in a desert environment, make sure you have a lot of water. It's basically, among other things, we're not going to emphasize about what type of food you should bring. We're not going to get into tents, shelters, and bivvies. We want to hammer down on the most severe aspect, the most severity. Water, a lack of water will kill. Make sure you stay out of the heat when it is triple, especially if it's near the triple, digits. If it's approaching the triple digits, basically don't even go out there during the high heat. Check the weather. You see, we can't, if we exhaust everything, this will be an unending 7-hour lecture. You have to check the weather. You have to make sure you don't go out there in high heat, approaching a high heat, especially where it's approaching the triple digits. And make sure you stay out of the heat. Make sure you have a lot of water, basically adequate amounts of water. Make sure you have the navigational redundancies. So again, these are unpopular series, but the most important mission, the greatest cure, is called prevention. Thank you.